At exactly 11:34 p.m. Eastern Time, November 4th, 2025, in a gold-gilded office, 200 miles south of New York City, Donald Trump's fingers hovered over his phone. The screen glowed with 4 words that would ignite a political war. And so it begins. But those weren't his words. Those were his declaration of war. Because just moments before, in a packed theater in Brooklyn, a 34-year-old Muslim immigrant had just done something no politician had dared to do in months. He looked directly into the camera, knowing Trump was watching, and delivered 4 words that would echo across America. Turn the volume up. November 4th, 2025. Election night. Brooklyn Paramount Theater. The air was electric. Over 2,000 supporters packed into the historic venue, more people than had gathered for a New York City mayoral victory party in over 50 years. The energy was palpable. You could taste the disbelief, the euphoria, the raw political lightning crackling through the crowd. Zohran Mamdani stood backstage, adjusting his tie with hands that trembled just slightly. In his pocket was a speech that his advisors had written, safe, diplomatic, conciliatory, the kind of speech mayors are supposed to give. He left it in his pocket. Because tonight wasn't about playing it safe. Tonight was about sending a message. At 9:32 p.m., NBC called it. Mamdani, 50. The impossible had happened. The 34-year-old state assemblyman, from Queens, the man Trump had called a communist lunatic, the candidate every establishment Democrat had quietly hoped would lose, had just pulled off the biggest political upset in New York City history. But this victory came with a target on his back worth $7.4 billion. That was the amount of federal funding Trump had threatened to withhold if Mamdani won. Not suggested, not hinted at. Threatened. Just 48 hours earlier, Trump had posted on Truth Social, if communist candidate Zohran Mamdani wins the election for mayor of New York City, it is highly unlikely that I will be contributing federal funds, other than the very minimum as required, to my beloved first home. The gauntlet had been thrown. Now as Mamdani walked toward that stage, 2,000 people on their feet, cameras from every major network trained on him. He had a choice to make. Duck for cover. Or fire back. 11:15 p.m. The Brooklyn Paramount erupted as Zohran Mamdani took the stage. Attorney General Letitia James was in the front row. Public Advocate Jumaane Williams was beaming from the VIP section. The crowd was a sea of yellow campaign t-shirts and raised phones. Everyone trying to capture this historic moment. Mamdani approached the microphone. His first words weren't about unity or bringing the city together. They were a quote from Eugene Debs, the early 20th century socialist, who had been imprisoned for opposing World War I. The sun may have set over our city this evening, Mamdani began, his voice cutting through the roar. But as Eugene Debs once said, I can see the dawn of a better day for humanity. The crowd fell silent. This wasn't a victory speech they expected. This was a declaration. Tonight you have delivered a mandate for change, a mandate for a new kind of politics, he continued, his voice growing stronger. My friends, we have toppled a political dynasty. The camera zoomed in on Andrew Cuomo's watch party across town. The former governor's face was stone. He had entered this race as the inevitable winner, the establishment favorite, the man with the money and the machine behind him. Now he was watching a Democratic socialist bury his political comeback on live television. I wish Andrew Cuomo only the best in private life, Mamdani continued, and you could hear the finality in his voice. But let tonight be the final time I utter his name, as we turn the page on a politics that abandons the many and answers only to the few. The cheers were deafening. But Mamdani wasn't done. He paused, looking directly into the main CNN camera. In Trump Tower, in the White House in Mar-a-Lago, wherever Trump was watching, Mamdani knew he was listening. I am young despite my best efforts to grow older, he said with a slight smile. I am Muslim. I am a democratic socialist. And most damning of all, I refuse to apologize for any of this. The crowd was on its feet. But the real moment was coming. If anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, Mamdani said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, forcing millions of viewers to lean in. It is the city that gave rise to him. Silence, complete silence in the theater. You could hear cameras clicking, the distant hum of traffic outside, The collective intake of breath from 2,000 people who knew they were witnessing something historic. And if there is any way to terrify a despot, it is by dismantling the very conditions that allowed him to accumulate power. This is not only how we stop Trump, it's how we stop the next one. He looked directly into the camera. So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up. The Brooklyn Paramount exploded. Literally exploded. The roar was so loud that sound engineers had to pull back their equipment. Confetti cannons fired. People were crying, screaming, jumping on chairs. Attorney General James pumped her fist in the air. Public Advocate Williams was shouting something no one could hear over the chaos. But 200 miles away, in whatever luxury resort or government building Donald Trump was monitoring the returns, the reaction was swift. At exactly 11:34 p.m., 4 words appeared on Trump's Truth Social account. And so it begins. The message was sent not during Mamdani's speech, but as Mamdani was speaking, as if Trump had been waiting, phone in hand for Mamdani to throw down the gauntlet so he could pick it up immediately. Within minutes, Turn the Volume Up was trending on Twitter. Within an hour, it was trending worldwide. The political world exploded. Cable news channels cut to breaking news coverage. Republican strategists were already on conference calls, trying to figure out how to use Mamdani's victory to attack Democrats nationwide. Democratic leaders were frantically texting each other, some celebrating, others panicking about what this meant for the party. But in that moment, in that theater, none of the political calculation mattered. Mamdani wasn't done. New York will remain a city of immigrants. A city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant, he declared, his voice carrying over the still cheering crowd. The message was unmistakable. Trump had made immigration the centerpiece of his administration. He had sent National Guard troops to Democratic cities. He had threatened to withhold funding from sanctuary cities. And now, the largest city in America, Trump's birthplace, the source of his wealth and fame, would be led by a Muslim immigrant who was declaring open political warfare on everything Trump stood for. So hear me, President Trump, when I say this, Mamdani continued, pointing directly at the camera. To get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us. The theater shook. Not from applause, but from the collective stomp of 2,000 people on their feet, pounding the floor in unison. The building literally vibrated. When we enter City Hall in 58 days, Mamdani shouted over the chaos, expectations will be high. We will meet them. But Trump was already responding. As Mamdani spoke, reports were coming in that the Trump administration was reviewing all federal funding commitments to New York City. The battle lines were being drawn in real time. The war had begun. November 5, 2025. 6:47 a.m. Eastern Time. America woke up to a changed political landscape. Overnight, Zohran Mamdani had become the face of the Democratic resistance to Trump. His 4 words, "Turn the volume up," were being played on loop on every news channel. But it wasn't just about the words. It was about what they represented. For months, Democrats had been searching for a way to respond to Trump's return to power. They had been cautious, measured, afraid to provoke him. They had been turning the volume down. Mamdani had done the opposite. He had grabbed the microphone and cranked it to 11. The response was immediate and brutal. By 7 a.m., Trump had issued a statement through the White House press office. The election of communist candidate Zohran Mamdani represents a clear and present danger to the safety and security of New York City and its residents. My administration will take all necessary measures to protect federal assets and personnel in the city, including a comprehensive review of all funding streams and security arrangements. Translation: the funding cuts were coming, and potentially much worse. Republican National Committee Chairman Joe Gruters released a statement calling Mamdani's agenda radical, and promising that Democrats will be held accountable by voters for embracing Mamdani's far-left agenda and the consequences it will bring in the 2026 midterm elections. But Democrats were energized. For the first time since Trump's return to office, someone had fought back. Someone had refused to be intimidated. Bernie Sanders issued a statement. Zohran understands that we are living in a moment in American history where we have never seen the people on top doing so very well, while 60% of the people in this country are living paycheck to paycheck. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeted, This is what courage looks like. This is what democracy looks like. This is what hope looks like. But behind the political theater, a more serious drama was unfolding. Trump's threat to withhold federal funding raised immediate constitutional questions. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7 of the Constitution is clear. No money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law. In plain English, the power of the purse belongs to Congress, not the President. Legal experts immediately began weighing in. Constitutional scholar Lawrence Tribe tweeted, "A president cannot unilaterally withhold congressionally appropriated funds based on political disagreement. This is not governance, it's extortion." But Trump had done it before. During his first term, he had blocked $12 million in NYPD counterterrorism funding. He had frozen aid to Ukraine to pressure that country's government. He had threatened to cut disaster relief to states whose governors opposed him. The difference now was scale and symbolism. New York City receives $7.4 billion in federal funding, money that supports housing, social services, transportation, and homeland security. Trump wasn't just threatening to punish Mamdani. He was threatening to punish 8.5 million Americans for their choice in mayor. And Mamdani knew it. At his first press conference as mayor-elect, held at 2 p.m. on November 5 outside Brooklyn Borough Hall, Mamdani was asked directly about Trump's threats. His response was vintage Mamdani, calm, calculated, and defiant. President Trump seems to believe that democracy is a game where he gets to punish Americans for making choices he doesn't like. Mamdani said, standing behind a podium flanked by American and New York City flags. But here's what he doesn't understand. New York City was standing long before Donald Trump was born. Will be standing long after he's gone. This city has survived economic crashes, terrorist attacks, pandemics, and every other crisis you can imagine. We're not going to be intimidated by a failed businessman with a Twitter account. The press conference was carried live on every major network. In the span of 18 hours, Mamdani had gone from being a relatively unknown state assemblyman to the most famous politician in America, not named Trump. But fame comes with a price. By the end of November 5th, the battle lines were clear. On one side, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, backed by the full resources of the federal government and the Republican Party apparatus. On the other side, Zohran Mamdani, a 34-year-old mayor-elect with no federal authority and a mandate from just one city. But that city happened to be New York, the financial capital of the world, the media capital of America, and Trump's hometown. The stakes couldn't be higher. If Trump succeeded in punishing New York City for its choice in mayor, it would set a precedent that could fundamentally alter American democracy. Presidents would have veto power over local elections. Federal funding would become a political weapon. If Mamdani succeeded in standing up to Trump, it would prove that resistance was possible, that local leaders could challenge federal overreach, that democracy could fight back. The volume had been turned up, and there was no turning it back down. Mamdani takes office on January 1, 2026. Trump will have 58 days to make good on his threats. Mamdani will have 58 days to prepare for the fight of his political life. The collision between these two men, one a Muslim immigrant democratic socialist, the other a twice-impeached former president turned authoritarian, will define not just the next 4 years of New York City politics, but the future of American democracy itself. Because this isn't just about federal funding. It's about whether the United States will remain a country where voters choose their leaders, or become one where leaders choose their voters. In Brooklyn, on the night of November 4, 2025, Zohran Mamdani looked directly into the camera and told the most powerful man in America to turn up the volume. Now we'll find out what happens when that volume reaches 11. What do you think? Was Mamdani's message to Trump brilliant political theater or dangerous escalation? Let us know in the comments below. Like and subscribe for more breaking political analysis, and hit that notification bell, because this story is just getting started. This content is based on real events and public statements. All dialogue and specific details about private conversations or internal strategy discussions are dramatized for storytelling purposes.